What's good, fight fans? Welcome back to another episode of Combat and Kick It. You already know it's your host, Bando, and we back at it, and we are here to talk about UFC 303. So let's waste no time. Let's get right into the breakdown. Let's go. Like I said, welcome back to another episode of Combat and Kick It, and we are breaking down UFC 303, this wild thing of a card. First off, let's get into the whole thing about the card for anybody who's not hip, right? If you're not hip to what happened to this card, this was the card that we were supposed to get the return of Conor McGregor, the long anticipated matchup of McGregor versus Chandler, and unfortunately, that fight got scrapped. And not only did that fight get scrapped, the original co-main event got scrapped as well, which was supposed to be Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree. So actually it started with that. That's the beginning of the timeline. Khalil Roundtree pulled out because of he got popped for some type of substance abuse. No, we don't know what the substance was, or I don't know what the substance was, but he got popped for it. So he was the first person off at 303, right? So then you got Carlos Ulberg that was going to step in to fight Jamal Hill, and that was going to be the co-main event. All right, cool. That's a sharp co-main event for sure. I'm with that. Then we get all the rumors back and forth as we get closer that Conor and Chandler's not going to happen. Conor and Chandler's not going to happen. Conor and Chandler's not going to happen. And you sit back and you're like, well, why wouldn't it happen? It doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't it happen? It should 100% happen. There should be no reason why this shouldn't happen. This is like the 60th time we tried to make it happen. But no. We finally get close to it. Conor McGregor pulls out. And how ironic, he pulls out over a bruised toe. A messed up toe. He told RDA, you bottled it over a broken toe. And look at how the tables turned, my friend. Wow. Full circle. Full circle. Came all the way back. Broken foot. First, I give Conor props, though. This is the first time Conor has, actually pulled out of a fight. Any other time that a Conor McGregor fight did not happen, 90% of the time it was because of his opponent. And then the other stuff was just more recent with the contract negotiations and all the law shit he was dealing with. All that kind of stuff, right? But either way, that fight is not happening. No more McGregor. No more Chandler. Until we end up finding out that it happens once he's completely healed up and ready to go. But on to the new main event, which is Alex Pereira versus Yuri Prochazka 2. Shout out to both of them for basically saving this card. Completely saving this card for everything it could have been, because otherwise we would have had a tragic situation with UFC 303. Would have been real tragic, real tragic. So the card's looking good now. You got Alex Pereira, Yuri Prochazka 2 as the main event. You got the co-main event is Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopes. I love that. I love that co-main event. So let's just break this down. Opening the card, you got Ian Machado Gary going up against Michael Venom Page. That's dope. That's real dope. Real dope. The reason why this is dope, because you already know this is going to be a striking matchup. This is going to stay on the feet. And this is one of those things where you're either going to see the overall, crisp technical striker like Ian Gary be able to be patient enough to end up catching MVP in some sort of counter, right? Or you're going to see MVP go in there again against a high-level striker and make him look silly because of the unorthodox style that he has. Now, MVP can crack too, right? I think he's lost a little bit. I think he's taking some off his punches, taking some off his shots, and just kind of focuses on the accuracy and stuff like that. He blitzes in at times. You can't tell. He fucks your timing up. He messed Kevin Holland up with that. So I can definitely see him doing that to Ian Gary. But I can also see Ian Gary being someone who's patient enough and smart enough to pick a shot and wait for one of those moments where Michael Venom Page typically does dart in and does bolt in and be able to land something. I can see Ian being able to counter him. It's just whether is Ian going to knock him out or not. That I don't know. I can see this fight going 3. I can see it either being a really good fight or an extremely boring fight. You know, it usually when you have two strikers on a high level, it's going to end up being pretty boring. At least somewhat boring. Decently boring in some way. Like it's always tough to get a really good matchup or a back and forth or a violent matchup or anything like that. But the way MVP fights is exciting, so it's going to bring something to the table. Who am I leaning with on this one? That's a good question. That's a real good question because I haven't thought about that yet. But I think if I'm sitting back, I'm going to have to rock with MVP. I just think the way that he fights, the style that he brings to the table, the way he freezes people, he confuses people, he messes with the timing. I think that's going to mess with Ian Gary. And I think he's either going to win through, like I said, a boring decision, or he's going to get a nasty, dope KO. But I think it's just going to be MVP by decision. Moving on, you got Mayra Bueno Silva going up against Macy Chiasson, right? Yep, just going up against Macy Chiasson. Mayra Bueno Silva is somebody that I truly thought was going to end up being the champion, but she couldn't get it done against Raquel Pennington. Let me tell you something. She better come into this fight with a better gas tank. And Macy Chiasson is somebody I thought right when she was at the beginning of her career, I'm like, oh, ain't nobody going to beat her. She's going to be one of those chicks that just walks through everybody. I was wrong with that assumption. I mean, she's 10-3. She's still up there. She's still dominant. She's still got a good skill set. I just need to see her start to use her advantages that she has in there more. She doesn't use the reach. She should be kicking more. She should be doing a lot more. But they're both 10-3, so that is kind of interesting. Who was her last fight? She got a sub against Pannie Kianzad, however you say that. I think I do remember that though. I do remember that submission. But she got that back in 2023. She was supposed to fight Yana Santos, but that fight got canceled. She lost to Irene Aldana by KO. She beat Norma Dumont by decision. Right? So, I mean, she's been in there with some talented people. She has lost to Raquel Pennington, though. She got subbed by Raquel Pennington, and Raquel Pennington is the current champion of that division. So, I don't know. If you do the MMA math, if people are doing the MMA math, you can do the MMA math and say Raquel beat Mayra Bueno Silva. So Mayra Bueno Silva should beat Macy Chiasson because Macy Chiasson lost to Raquel Pennington. MMA math. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I guess we'll find out. Who am I rocking with in that one? If the fight goes 3, I'm going with Macy Chiasson. If you talk about an early finish, I don't know. This fight can go either way. This fight's probably going to go to decision, but I can see either one of them getting a submission win. If I had to say one of them getting one, I could see one of them getting a submission win. So either way, first round, second round, decision win, or first round, second round, submission win, or decision win. And if it goes to decision, I'm probably going to be leaning Macy. So overall, I'm going with Macy Chiasson. So you remember that Jamal Hill, Carlos Ulberg fight that was supposed to happen? Yeah. That got scrapped too. Completely. Washed. Gone. Completely gone. Jamal pulled out. Carlos Ulberg pulled out. So what is the fight we get now? Anthony Smith versus Roman Dolidze. I don't even know how to break this one down. This fight doesn't make any sense, but it's a last minute replacements. Shout out to both men for stepping up and taking it, right? It was going to be Anthony versus Carlos Ulberg, which was going to be a really difficult fight for Anthony, in my personal opinion. I think it was going to be a difficult fight, but Carlos pulled out, so Roman Dolidze stepped up. Roman Dolidze is a middleweight. Talented middleweight on the come up, but tough one to jump up to 205. But it's also one of those things where what are you doing it for? Do you have aspirations of going to 205 and staying at 205, or do you have, did you just want the paycheck, being on a big card, fighting somebody like Anthony Smith? Like, what was it? You know what I mean? Like, what is it? And then for Anthony Smith, there's nothing to gain off of this win. Just getting a win. I mean, it puts a win in his record, but it doesn't. You gain nothing from this win. So it really is just a fun scrap. And no matter what happens in this one, it really don't matter for either guy. It don't matter if one wins. It's not like it's going to elevate them to a different position. Think about it. If Roman wins against Anthony and goes back to 185, what difference does that make? You know what I mean? Like, he's still in the same position at 185. You still got to beat another top guy on 185 to get to the next position. So it really doesn't matter, right? And then you look at for Anthony Smith. If Anthony Smith wins, right, it's not elevating him either, right? It's just putting the win on the record. That's pretty much it. It's not elevating him to no title shot. Nobody's jumping on that. Nobody's saying, oh, he deserves the next title shot because he beat Roman Dolidze on a short notice fight who's a middleweight. You know what I mean? So I think the fight can go either way. I really don't even have a straight prediction. This fight, if you look at the bet odds, they're going to probably be dead even, just with how short notice it's been. And, I don't expect it to be a good fight. I expect to see two guys that are somewhat out of shape. And that's not me throwing shade at them. It's literally because they got to come off the couch on 1 week's notice to come take this fight. That's crazy, So shout out to both guys for doing it. But I think it's going to be dead even. It can go either way. Actually, matter of fact, Roman Dolidze might not be in terrible shape because he was supposed to fight at UFC 302 against Anthony Hernandez, but that got scrapped. So maybe still kept himself in good shape and was like, yo, Dana, I'll take a fight. Who knows? But moving on to the co-main event, you got Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopes. Another short notice fight, but another fantastic fight. Going to be explosive for as long as it lasts. That's all I can say. That is my number one prediction, is it's going to be explosive for as long as it lasts, because it's going to be back and forth early. The pressure is going to be on by Diego Lopes, man. The way he put the pressure on Sodiq Yusuff and walked right through him, I did not expect that. Did not expect that at all. So he's definitely going to bring the pressure to Brian Ortega. He seems like the type of guy that does not show any respect for, not respect in terms of like actual respect. I'm talking about respect in the striking aspect. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He comes straight at you and he pushes you, pressure forward. So we'll see what happens. He's going up against a guy who has been in there with every strong pressure fighter in the division already. He's been in there with Yair, Max, Volk. Those are some of the top guys that are pressure strikers. Max obviously put it to him. Yair landed a lot of good shots on him. He's been in there with some top guys. So Brian Ortega is extremely talented. We haven't seen him get to really, You know, he was an undefeated prospect at one point that nobody thought was going to lose, right? Remember, he knocked out Frankie Edgar, that nasty submission guillotine on Cub Swanson and stuff like that. Like, people really expected him to be the next champion, and people had him over Max, right? Max was coming in. It wasn't the sharpest looking Max anymore because people thought, like, the weight cuts and the sicknesses and all that kind of stuff was going to get, you know, bothering him and stuff. Not at all. Not at all. And ever since that happened, all the people changed their tune. The same people that were saying that he's gonna be the next champion are the same people that were saying, oh, he's overrated once he lost. So it's not that. He's definitely not overrated. Jiu-jitsu still top tier. He can sub you on the ground. He can sub you standing up. It really doesn't matter. So the thing about this fight is, yes, Diego Lopes is dangerous, but he has to be careful. He has to be careful that he can't slip up. He hasn't been in there with the amount of guys that Brian Ortega's been in there with when it comes in terms of talent and experience. So he's got to be careful. I would lean towards Brian Ortega in this fight, but if Diego Lopes does get this win, that's insane for his career, and that's fast rising, and you're talking about him fighting any one of the top 3 guys in that division, you know, as his next fight. He just surpassed one of the best guys in the division on short notice. So we'll see what happens overall. You know, I think Diego does have a possible opportunity of getting a finish if he's smart, but if he's pressuring him and he's too explosive in the first round and he makes a mistake, you don't want to make a mistake against Brian Ortega. His striking is good, but his jiu-jitsu is even better. I'm leaning with Brian Ortega in this fight. And now on to that main event. Alex Pereira, Yuri Prochazka. We seen it once, and now we get to see it again. So Alex got him the first time. Alex caught him with a clean shot. A lot of people thought was an early stoppage. It wasn't. That man was out. That man was wobbling. That man was out. You don't want to see people follow up and get too many strikes landed on them. You know, and that's not me being a biased Alex fan. It's true. You just don't want to see it. But even Yuri said he was out. But either way, we didn't really get to see the fight fully, though. We know we wanted to see more of that fight, and I think we're about to get that opportunity. I think this fight is going to be a 5-round fight. I think we are going to see a great 5-round fight between these two men. And I think it's still going to end up having the same outcome as Alex Pereira as champion. I think he is still going to get his hand raised at the end of the night. I can see Yuri doing it, but he still keeps himself so wide open. He gets hit so much. And I think if Alex could land again, stay patient enough and land again, it's not something you want to mess around with. And he carries that power all throughout the fight. But we'll see what happens. Yuri was looking good against Rachik, so we'll see what he brings to the table in this one. He was winning the first round against Pereira, so that was also interesting. So it could potentially go either way, but I think it's going to be a good back and forth fight for 5 rounds with Alex Pereira taking it over. You know, I just feel like that's the outcome that is supposed to happen. I feel like that is the way this fight is supposed to happen. It's supposed to be a 5-round fight where we get to see 2 warriors of this time. Literally 2 warriors. Like, you're watching Samurai Guy versus this guy who's walking up with a bow and arrow screaming. Just it's a crazy time. They are 2 characters, and we got to see a decent fight the first time, but I think we're going to see a great fight the second time. So I'm excited for it. Shout out to both men for saving the card. Like I said, Conor McGregor bottled it over a broken toe. How ironic. And we got the whole entire card changed up, and this card is even better than the original. So that's my opinion, and that's my breakdown. So you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification button so you know when the next episode is out. And you know when I say like, comment, subscribe. Comment your opinions, your predictions. Who do you have winning at UFC 303? How do you feel about Conor McGregor pulling out of UFC 303 and the card getting completely changed? Let me hear what you think. But you know what to do. I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.
Stop.